Okay guys, today I'm going to tie up the balanced leech that you just saw in my video. I am going to be using a pre-made brush that I made, and you'll be able to find this on my Facebook if you check it out. And there'll be details on exactly how to make this brush. I find that the wire brushes just are way more durable and they last a lot longer than just doing just a dubbing loop. So first thing I'm going to do is I got a number 1 size 1 hook, jig hook in here, and I'm going to tie on some thread. I'm going to use some burgundy. I'm just going to lay in a quick few wraps to start the base, and then I'm going to snip that off. Okay, now we're going to use a bead head, because this is a balanced leech, and I'm going to use a Cyclops. So that is black nickel, and just size extra small. I don't actually know the bead size, it doesn't tell me. I'm going to put that on a pin. So I have some pins here. You can get those at Michael's or online at your favorite fishing store. But there's the pin. It's just a pin head, as it were. Shove that onto the bead. Now I want to look at what kind of distance I want. So the way I tend to work this, I mean, you can make a longer jig, whatever you want to do to make a bigger leech. These leeches are like a standard size leech for the lakes I'm fishing in. So basically I'm going to put about a 2 centimeter space, or half an inch up front here. So I'm going to cut it right there, and I'm going to grab my snippers, and I don't recommend you using your scissors for that, and snip that down into the box. So now I got that set up the way I want. I'm just going to tie that in. And of course, this isn't the integral part of the fish catching part, so you don't have to glue it in or whatever. A pretty good tie seems to be okay. All right, so another thing I want to do is, because this isn't a tungsten bead, which it could be if you like, is I have some 0.015 lead wire. I usually take off I guess that's a good 8 inches, and I put a 1/2 inch in my thread here and put this on, and then I start a little bit of a wrap here. Start behind the eye and just do 1 or 2 turns real quick, and then I can use the rotary vise. If you got a rotary vise, you might as well take advantage of it. So this is what's going to help balance it forward, because I'm not making it as long as I should or could. So just because I'm only adding a little bit, and I'm not using a tungsten head, adding a little bit of this lead wire will balance this leech out nicely. That's probably enough, but I will wrap the last little bit in here. So once you have that lead on there, you just have to take your line and then make some turns just over top, just to kind of seat it in there. And then I head back to get ready for the tail. So I don't go too far back. I don't even go as far as the point, but almost. So just about to the hook point. So now I'm going to use some green Flashabou, or crystal flash, sorry. I'm going to use about 4 or 5 strands of this. And I cut it a little bit longer. So there it is there. I cut it a little bit longer because it'll fold in half. I want this to go back barely the length of the hook shank itself. I don't want it to go very far back. And then I just double back and tie off the extra there. Okay, and then you can just snip out. I got one that's a little bit too long. Snip that off. Actually, lift that up a little bit. Go back over top of this just a little bit further, just to get those to seat down. There. And now I just add a little bit of strung black marabou to cover the green on the tail. And basically what I'm doing with this is taking the actual whole piece, just enough to cover the green flashabou. And once that's just enough coverage, I just give it a quick tie in and just make sure that it's maybe pulled forward a little bit and tie that in. A few good wraps here and snip that off. Snip off the extra. Now this is the easy part of the whole fly. If you've spent the time making a brush, the rest of this is super easy. And again, I can show you how to make the brushes on another video on my site. So basically you just want to grab a small piece of the wire and tie the wire in and just wrap that forward, and let's just get this line out of the way. Now all I'm going to do is just wrap this, not quite touching turns because I don't need it to be that thick, but almost touching turns. And then I'm pulling it back as I go just to make the wrap. And this stuff is so much more durable, I found. Bull trout even seem to take it beat it up pretty good, and it lasts quite long. So I'm a bit of a believer in the brush. So now I'm tight around the eye. I want to get a couple wraps in to the head before I tie this off. I usually have a small little bit, as you see here, a small little bit left, which is about where I'm at now. Because it's wire, you can kind of just give it a pull, and then a quick one or two to tie it in, a couple behind, a couple more in front, and then snip this wire off. Okay, so just one full brush, which is 8 inches, usually does one of these full-size leeches. If you're doing micro leeches, you can quite often get 2 out of it. So now I'm just going to do a few more turns to finish off the head, nice and tight. I want to make sure that's good and tight in there. And then the whip finish. And I just got to find my whip finisher. What did I use it for last? Oh, I was making a mess on here a few minutes ago, setting up this camera. Now there it is. Here we go. One messy bench. So just a few wraps to tie this off. I am going to put some thin UV resin here just to harden up the head, but just a couple whip finishes just to make sure it's nice and tight. Snug that in there, snip that off. Now that's basically the whole fly. Super easy. I don't know if you've timed that, but I'm sure it's just a couple minutes. If you pre-make these brushes while you're watching TV, you know, you can spend some quality time up with the wife and kids and making the brushes. So I'm not too worried about getting in a little bit of the fur here because there's a lot of it, and you'll see. So let's give that a quick wipe, harden it up, and that is it, folks. Super simple. And the one thing I do with this leech is I put it in some hot water, and now because it's a wire, the wire brush, you can beat down on this and it won't fall apart. So that's it. So now I'm going to put this in a little bit of hot water. Oh, geez, my vise is awfully tight. Holy smokes. Give me my hook back. So I don't know if you know this back home or at home is the synthetic, because I've used a lot of synthetics in here. It will be all poofy doo. So if you put this in a tank, or not a tank, just a cup of hot water. I usually put a third of a cup, teacup, in the microwave for 1 minute. You don't want it to be boiling, scorching, but it'll actually tame this down. Anything that's synthetic. And when this gets wet, this fly is absolutely deadly. Absolutely deadly. It looks too big and fat right now, but when this thing gets tamed in the hot water and then gets wet, it is absolutely amazing. Anyway,